Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Oh boy. Gosh. God help us. I'm just reading the news, reacting as any sane person would. And there's one horror story after another, and almost every one of them brought to you by the off the rails. And I'm not even talking about Norfolk Southern here, the off the rails Republican Party. God almighty. Let me just say this, as if I haven't before. They're dangerous. They're deranged, many of them. And those who aren't deranged are cowards to go along with the deranged ones. They've created... I don't know where to start. This is often a problem. Hello, by the way. Did I say hello? It's February 22nd. I cannot believe this news that the Speaker of the House, God help us, Kevin McCarthy, decided it was perfectly reasonable, intelligent, a good idea to give Tucker Carlson and Fox News and their producers unfettered total access to 44,000 hours of security footage from January 6th. He hasn't given that to anybody else. Of all the I was going to say journalists, but we were talking about that yesterday. Tucker Carlson is in no way a journalist. To give, the January 6th committee itself, throughout the course of their labors, did show the public in their hearings some of that footage. They did not show one frame of footage before they ran it by the Capitol Police and other people in charge of security to ensure that showing that specific shot would not in some way endanger people in the Capitol in the future, by showing a sensitive area, by essentially showing, when you show the members of Congress being taken to safe locations, being able to figure out where those safe locations are by putting together the footage from. It's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Benny Thompson, the wonderful co-chair of that committee, is just, he's like I am. He managed to get this coherent sentence out. It's hard to overstate the potential security risks if this material were to be used irresponsibly. Irresponsibly? Who? Tucker Carlson? Why? The two would never even find themselves in the same paragraph. Tucker Carlson. Irresponsible. Carlson, as you may or may not know, and wouldn't be surprised to hear if you hadn't, that he has alleged, among a million other lies that January 6th was the result of a false flag operation, which is to say the government did it itself. He said Nancy Pelosi was behind it. He has said the FBI was behind it. This is, first of all, categorically false. But just stop and think. The Speaker of the House, the person in line, third in line for the presidency, Speaker of the House, in his wisdom, handed over 44,000 hours of security tape of that horrific and deadly day to Tucker Carlson. I'll tell you who reacted differently than I am. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Why, she said, "Ha! For all of you that doubted we would release the tapes, here you go." And it was. The Marjorie Taylor Greenes, the lunatic right, that forced McCarthy to do this. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You know, Tucker Carlson already he produced a documentary filled with lies about January 6th. I forgot what it was called, Patriot something or other. I mean, and he still calls the people who, many of whom are already in jail, serving terms, convicted, patriots. You know, when I first saw this news, I literally, you know, there's that moment where it's sort of like bargaining with, you know, you can't believe it. You simply can't. Your brain can't process that McCarthy would be so unbelievably irresponsible, so in the pocket of the crazies and traitors and racists. Oh my God. So, I just came upon it here. His documentary is titled Patriot Purge. And anyone who had the bad judgment to sit through that documentary would have been informed that it was FBI operatives behind the assault. Oh, God. Headline: McCarthy gives Tucker Carlson exclusive access to January 6th riot video. That is a headline. That is true. That happened is mind-boggling to me. Marjorie Taylor Greene is ascendant. If you're not on Twitter, you might have missed. She had this read on Twitter yesterday that I could not, I didn't have the stomach to get through. But I'll tell you what she was proposing. Essentially secession, a second civil war. I'm going to read, this is not a parody account, this is her account. Some of what she said, it's beyond belief. That we need a national divorce by states. Can't even find it here. So that she's proposing that we literally have two countries, the red states and the blue states. And in the red states, she goes on and on and on about the kinds of laws that would be in the red states and the things that would not be allowed. And then she imagines what the blue states would have. And on she goes. This is a member of Congress. Here's a little part of it. Hollywood elites and celebrities and all the brainwashed leftist women who watch those nasty women on The View, men who identify as women, and Democrat voters who suffer from the lifelong debilitating disease Trump derangement syndrome that they caught from CNN, wouldn't have to see, much less tolerate, deplorables anymore. She's trying to sell us on breaking up the union. They could live in their safe space, blue states, own nothing, let their government decide and control everything, and most importantly, protect their fragile minds from being shocked and insulted by those of us who believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Incredible. I mean, it's silly of me. I'm sorry. I mean, you're probably, if you're still there, thinking, come on, Cullen. Why are you so bent out of shape today? We've been living this for so long. It's just that sometimes I can't believe it. I just can't believe we've come to this. It's extraordinarily unsettling. And then I happen to see, speaking of that, I happen to see that what the Brookings Institute, let me find it here among my crapola here. The Brookings Institute put out a survey about this. They did it in cahoots with a group called the Public Religion Research Institute. I guess that tracks, religious trends in the United States. And you've perhaps seen this. It's just so unsettling. But this is one of those surveys when they talk to Christian Americans and, found out if they identified as Republican or Democrat and all that. And they asked them questions about whether they agreed, with certain statements. Well, the results of this are chilling. Because more than half, a majority of Republicans questioned agreed with the statement that being Christian is an important part of being truly American. Well, I have to tell you, as someone who is not Christian, but is an American, I have some problem with that. I have a great problem with that. Half of the Republicans, more than half, agree that I am not really, cannot be an American. Somehow believe that American equates with Christian, when our founding documents so clearly say the opposite. But when did facts or knowledge ever impede the Republicans? The reality is that a slight majority, perhaps, of Republicans are Christian nationalists, which is an un-American thing to be. More than half agreed with this statement. God has called Christians to exercise dominion over all areas of American society. You know, this is the kind of thinking that jihadists would understand. And it never occurs to these dimwits that they are essentially following the playbook of jihadist terrorists, our way or the highway. These Christian nationalists have their own Ayatollah in Donald Trump. They had their gubernatorial candidate in Mastriano, who was quite open about being part of this group, which was constantly sort of said to be a fringe. If it was a fringe, then how come he overwhelmingly won the Republican primary? That's not a fringe. That's the party. The party is a clear and present danger to us all. Barbara sent me something reminding us that you know who loves Tucker Carlson is Vladimir Putin. And that's another thing. Carlson carries water for Putin, like Trump did. And now you're giving the guy who's yeah, sure. Give Putin's water boy the security tapes from the U.S. Capitol. Barbara sent me something, and I'm not sure where this is exactly from. I cannot tell, but it doesn't surprise me. Carlson is, Russian state television analysts discussed several ways to target the United States, including nuclear war and the liquidation of tens of thousands of American troops. One analyst said that Russia would not want to kill one American for sure, and that would be Tucker Carlson. He their boy. So, if you pay attention, I don't know. I was looking at some of the things that have been going on in Michigan. Now, Michigan, you'll recall, was one of the states that was Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Those are the states that end up sort of controlling which way things go. And Michigan was was heading into some terrifying territory. This is a state in which there was a foiled attempt to literally kidnap the governor. This is a state where armed protesters, openly armed protesters, went into the state capitol building to intimidate the legislators there. And in the last election, this is the state where the Republican Party got pummeled, which was so gratifying. The people of Michigan who flirted with these folks clearly had a change of heart. Every Republican lunatic candidate up for election in the last election got trounced. The woman who ran for Michigan Secretary of State, who is a Marjorie Taylor Greene clone, she lost. But you know what she is now? She has been elected to be the head of the Michigan Republican Party. And the things that she says are so antithetical to what even a third grader schooled in the values of the young American democracy would know is just craziness. She is a Christian nationalist. She believes that Christianity belongs at the core of American politics. Here's another golden oldie from her. Evolution, she says, is, quote, one of the biggest frauds ever perpetrated on society. And she absolutely says, if you do not believe in the existence of demons, well, then you're probably possessed yourself. Here's a quote. When we start talking about the spiritual reality of the demonic forces, it's like, oh my God, this is crazy. We can't go there. No, it's like, did you read the Bible? The scriptures are clear. And so if we are not operating as though the spirit realities of the world exist, we're going to fail every time. This is the Republican Party. This is who the membership of the Republican Party in just one state, Michigan, wanted. This is the person who they said, we want you to lead us. These people are all over the country, and they are in positions of incredible power in the Republican Party. I mean, we have watched with disbelief as Marjorie Taylor Greene went from, first of all, securing a seat in the Congress, even though she was spouting crazy stuff and un-American stuff and QAnon stuff. And not only does she get to Congress, she's now literally at the right hand of the Speaker of the House. Anyone who thinks that this Republican Party is rehabilitatable can somehow rid itself of the lunatics who have taken it over is possessed by demons, probably. There's no way. Because they are not the fringe. They are the heart of the party. I came upon this some time ago, and I never shared it with you. Because at the time, again, I thought, this can't possibly be true. But of course it is. And I believe this was in the Washington Post. And it's a report that came out of the Republican National Committee. I was just talking about the Michigan State Committee. This is the National Republican Committee. And they had a big meeting. And they have decided to double down on the subject of election integrity. This is the National Party sticking with a big lie, since our elections are incredibly clean. Every time we find a place where something went awry, it's the Republicans themselves that are at the base of it. But this is their, since Donald Trump's big lie. And because they suffered in the last election, the midterm election, it was assumed they would see that this is not a winning formula and they'd backtrack. They're not backtracked. They're doubling down. Again, something they learned from Donald Trump. The report, which got flipped to the Washington Post, says that what the National Party wants to happen, and should be happening right now, is that every state organization, like the one headed by the lunatic I was telling you about in Michigan, needs to appoint an election integrity officers, need to institute intensive training models for poll workers and observers, and all of this based on what they say is the Democrats' rigging of elections. It's almost like it's almost as if there's a part of them that just wants to lose because they're becoming so, like a jihadist, so incapable of seeing anything different from what they've decided is the truth. So incapable of compromise or walking things back. They cannot do it. It's impossible for them. And so, my God. So it says here, in the coming months, national staff will be working with the election integrity committees and it says this is an effort to combat the continuing onslaught of Democrat election manipulation. You know what Democrat election manipulation is? Wanting people to vote. Wanting to make it as accessible as possible for people to exercise their right to vote. The RNC says that Democrats have built a permanent infrastructure designed to create strategic advantages in every aspect of election administration. Just absolute bullshit. So, there's that. Hey, there was another train derailment yesterday. Just you know how we don't pay attention to train derailments because they happen at such an extraordinary rate in this country. But now that, we saw a really bad one, there's more attention being paid. So the fact that there was a train derailment, and I believe it was Nebraska. And this time, luckily, the train that went off the tracks was not carrying hazardous material. Well, not technically hazardous material. It was carrying coal. It was carrying coal. But yeah, expect to see news of train derailments, because media always gets on these jags. You get a big story, and then you have to keep focusing on every story that in any way underscores the narrative. The trains. Okay. I got something else here that, again, a story that made me so insane. And maybe it's a little more nuanced than I'm aware of, but there's no getting away from the general optics here. I don't know if this is getting a lot of attention. You remember Jackson, Mississippi? Jackson, Mississippi 1 is the capital of Mississippi. Mississippi is the poorest state in the Union. Mississippi is an incredibly cruel place. Jackson is the place where the water, the water supply went completely, right? Yeah. Anyway. Jackson, Mississippi. State legislators approved a bill that would establish a separate court system for roughly 1/5 of Jackson, Mississippi. This court system would be run by state-appointed justices and served by the state-run police force. It would essentially supplant the existing county court system. And that court system, the judges are elected. The Jackson police force is involved. So why would they pass a bill that culls about 1/5 of the state capital, Jackson, and removes it from normal judicial oversight and creates an entirely different system for that 1/5? Well, my understanding as I read it is that this is a total apartheid thing. More than 8 in 10 of Jackson's residents, city is about 150,000 people. More than 8 in 10 are African American. That's a hugely African American city, right? The mayor is black. Most of its elected leaders, its judges, are black. And the little part, this 1/5 that the state legislature wants to cull, is the area in which the white folks who run the state government, and because of that have to live in Jackson or be there, it takes them out of having to be under the thumb of these black leaders and judges and cops, and gives them an overwhelmingly white governance structure. the Washington Post article where I read this, it said now I'm confused. I am confused. There's part of it says a mainly black city would be controlled by white officials under the proposal, and I'm unclear about that. I don't quite understand if it's just all I know is, as they say, the racial aspect of this is pretty hard to dispute. I mean, this has a lot to do with race. This is not coincidental. The Republicans control the state. Their state government is in an 80% black city controlled by Democrats and blacks. All Republican state senators are white. Well, this is not shocking. The Republican Party is a Christian white nationalist party, with some exceptions that get trotted out to show that they're not bigots. All 112 Republican state senators and representatives are white. And as for the Democrats, all but 4 are black. And there's only half as many Democrats. So I don't. This is somewhat reminiscent of, you'll recall, Flint, Michigan, back to Michigan. When the Republicans had a lot of power in Michigan, and the governor was Governor Snyder, his name is, Republican. He, remember, famously took control of Flint, and I believe Detroit too, water supplies. I don't, the implication being that these cities run by black people weren't functioning efficiently and or properly. So the state comes in and takes over. Well, we know what happened when the state took over. The state decided to get Flint's water from a nearby river, which led, of course, to this outrageous contamination of the drinking water supply for 100,000 people. True and irreparable damage to children and others. I don't know. You know what? I don't even, I read these things and I've lost the ability to even, I often can't even finish an article. And I know that's not good because then you're just getting little bits here and there. But I just can't believe how bad this. Okay, let's see. Here's another thing. I'm just sticking with what the reality of what governance by Republicans will be like. So the other thing the Christian Nationalist Party has done is, of course, ban abortion everywhere it can. And do you know one of the real problems of that in all of these states? It's about half the states. A woman does not have the ability to get the health care she and or her doctor and or herself want. It's been deemed criminal. What about the medical schools in those states? What if somebody, and an awful lot of doctors will be going, I suppose, to medical schools in, you name them, Texas, Florida, I mean, all those states. Are they even going to be able to teach these med students how to abort? I don't think so. You are going to have a whole bunch of doctors coming into the pipeline who don't know how to do at abortion. So even if abortions are available, if you don't have anybody who can do them, well, they're not available. So listen to what some are doing. This is from the University of Texas in Austin. Their medical school is called Dell Medical School. The students themselves have started teaching. They've created an organization called Medical Students for Choice, and they want to make sure that if presented, for instance, with a woman suffering a miscarriage who in fact needs what we call an abortion to save her life, you need to get what's in there out. You need to know how to do a manual vacuum aspiration of the uterus. They ain't going to be taught it. And yet the possibility that in an emergency room situation or others that they will encounter a woman in such need, but they won't know how to do it. So the students themselves are getting together. And you know what? This blew my mind. They're using papayas. This is where it gets really unbelievable. A papaya, a fruit, a tropical fruit. A papaya, if you cut it open, lay it out, man, oh man, it does bear a shocking resemblance to the inside of a woman's uterus. And so it turns out that they're training on papayas. One of the students says, I'm just so concerned about the fact that I can't be trained how to do these important procedures that could save someone's life. This is happening. Some of these programs are doing this in Louisiana. They're doing it in these red states. And this one student says, you're just not getting enough practice. So if I'm faced with an emergency situation, would I be confident in my training? And so what's happening is medical students in these states are taking their education into their own hands and organizing what are called papaya workshops. And one of them says, understand, if you're going in obstetrics, it's really important to know how to empty a uterus. And the main way to do it is through the manual vacuum aspiration. And so they do them on the papayas, acting as the uterus. They want to know how to, apparently the papaya gives in the same way, feels the same way. She says, this student, the seeds in the papaya are really great because you make sure you're actually getting suction, you're removing them, and you're doing the right technique. This is what we've come to. American medical students getting papayas to train themselves so they will be able to help a woman who is in jeopardy of losing her life. They're not getting this training in medical schools in the great state of Texas. And this is what they want to make clear. This is what is so often not noted, is that the procedure for abortion is the exact same procedure for a patient who's going through a miscarriage that is complicated with heavy bleeding and hemorrhaging and could be fatal. So imagine a few years from now when we actually don't have enough doctors who can provide that care. Unbelievable. So there you have it. Papayas. Who knew? I mean, that's like third world country stuff, right? This is where the Republicans will take us. My God. Hey guys, you won't have me to cheer you up tomorrow. I have to tell you that. I have to. I have to drive to Green Bay, Wisconsin, and spend some time there. And and in order to do it in a timely manner, I really have to leave tomorrow morning. I was hoping to do the show, and then it doesn't work. It's a long trip. So I'll be heading that way tomorrow. I should be there all next week for sure, and I'll be doing the show from there. You shouldn't note any difference, except that I'm probably more tired since the time is different. I don't know, and not quite as I don't know. My mother doesn't get the papers I get, so I'll be just stuck with the internet. But whatever. Just wanted to say, and dealing with weather. I mean, I know they're getting pummeled right now. No, it's a great time to go to Wisconsin, I'll tell you. I just checked the 10-day forecast. And that winter that we didn't have here, well, it's happening there. So I'm heading into the winter. And just wanted you to know, I didn't realize until last night that I really couldn't do the show tomorrow. So, as I said, you'll have to find somebody else to cheer you up. Hey, did you see that? So far, Governor Shapiro is one of those governors, one of those leaders who, when you see him or hear him, you feel like you're in good hands. With, a tip of the hat to what? State Farm Insurance. You do. You feel safe. I do. I know he's a fighter. I know he's serious. He seems to be a good man. And I just, I relax. And he's been doing, really well. Just already, just out of the gate, really well. And he said, the Ohio governor hasn't, but Josh Shapiro said that his office is making a criminal referral in response to the Norfolk Southern train derailment because of its effect on parts of Pennsylvania. So That's good. He was very much an activist, AG, and it appears he's going to be an activist governor. And the difference, can you imagine? Can you imagine that it could be Mastriano? That was the choice. Shapiro. Interesting. Two candidates that end in an O. Shapiro and Mastriano. And oh, what a difference. My God. City Paper has an interesting story I refer you to about, it's so disheartening, and it's another thing that I can like rant and rave about, but it's about the use of graduate students at the University of Pittsburgh, and I'm sure other, but this is Pitt grads, to teach courses. Grad students. I'm not talking about the adjunct professors. That's another thing. The layers of poorly paid faculty at these so-called prestigious universities is unbelievable. If I just keep thinking, think of what you pay. Think of the debt that people have gone into to get that college degree, because it costs tens and tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars. And then find out that a lot of the classes are taught by people who are making below minimum wage. Below minimum wage. How does that... So there's an effort to unionize these grad students who teach. Just listen to this. These are graduate students. They're trying to get, they're, I don't know, they're going probably into more debt trying to get a degree. And they earn $10,000 each semester at the University of Pittsburgh. $10,000. That's it. They also, you try living on, so let's make that, if they teach 2 semesters, that's $20,000. They can barely keep a roof over their head. You're living in a very precarious position, and you are the one teaching the kids whose parents and themselves are going into debt to go to this university that then has classes taught by grad students making $10,000 a semester. And as he says, this is like mandated poverty. And here's the thing. This is what I cannot believe. I've read this. I thought I've heard this stuff before. The adjuncts make a little bit more. Believe me, not much. But what I was blown away by is this sentence. They earn about $10,000 each semester. And their contract prevents them from taking on a second job. Can you imagine making somebody sign a contract that says, I'm only going to pay you $10,000 for teaching a class of maybe 80 students, grading, all the stuff that comes with it, prep, yada, 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 yada. And you cannot take another job while we pay you this non-livable wage. The gall! I mean, it is unbelievable. So anyway, there's a whole story. You can read it. I think, again, you look around it. Is there any institution that functions in an ethical way, or is well run? It has not lost touch with its mission. Is there? I mean, you do start to. You start to wonder. Okay. Right now, Fox producers are going through January 6th video, and they are desperately looking to find something that they can create a different story about, a different narrative. And these guys are good at that, taking things out of context, or, when have to, just making things up out of whole cloth. Why not? Well, I watched one of my favorite shows last night. That's Finding Your Roots. Did I ever tell you I always said roots? That's the Wisconsin accent. It's not roots. It's roots. So it'd be Finding Your Roots. And I can't remember. I guess I was disabused of that. The same time I was disabused of that the thing on top of your house is a roof. So I said roof, and I said roots. And I think it was, I know it was actually, when I got to acting school in New York, that I was told that that ain't right. And it was Fiddler on the Roof. When I kept hearing people saying, "Oh, did you see Fiddler on the Roof?" I thought, geez, why is everybody pronouncing it like that? Fiddler on the Roof. And then it turns out roots are the same. So Finding Your Roots. And last night, the two celebrity people that they dug into the past, their ancestral past of, was 60s activist Angela Davis and Jay Johnson, who was the Homeland Security Director. Held a number of positions. He was with Obama, I think. Anyway, Jay Johnson. And one of the things that is so fascinating is finding out that the stories we tell ourselves, the stories that make us feel like we can create a coherent narrative about who we come from, where we come from. So often, these narratives are not true. And so they blow up a sense of self. For Angela Davis, that she really got side-whacked. I mean, here is somebody who takes such pride in her African heritage, in her blackness, in her fight against racism. And she ends up having to come to terms with the fact that she has a direct ancestor, one of her grandparents, great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, who came over on the Mayflower. Now, you never think, do you? When you think of people who can lay claim to, oh, well, my people have been here since, the Mayflower. You don't think people saying that would be black, right? Listening to these stories, you see how she was dismayed. I think her sense of who she was in some ways, blown up. I'm sure she'll come to better terms with it. There's no getting around it because almost every Black person in America has plenty of white blood in them because, well, we know. And that was a story that was uncovered when they looked into Jay Johnson's history that was mind-blowing. That one of his, I think it was his fourth grandparent, great-great-great-great-grandparent, maybe another one, was a slave owner who had 10 children by the same woman, a slave of his. She bore 10 of her master's children. Meanwhile, he had, of course, other children and a white wife. And you would think, okay, yeah, I heard this story before, but it turns out they could see through records and stuff that after the Civil War, this white slave owner ended up choosing the Black woman over the white wife. And he lived. I still don't understand. I thought, did I leave and get, because that would be illegal for a white man to be living with his Black common law wife and his 10 children. But that any guy a white guy would have done that is mind blowing. We don't hear those stories. And all you're left to do is wonder, what the hell? What is the human story? And again, watching Jay Johnson just struggling. He so wanted to hate that guy as we're undoing the story, how he's so hating this man, hating this. And then it turns out, wait a minute. The guy ends up choosing his former slave and the children he had with her. I don't know. A lot more of that story. That is so far my favorite show because of the exploding of mythologies and narratives that it does, if you're not normally into it. Okay, guys, I see that I'm out of time. And I thank you. And sorry about tomorrow, but wish me luck on that trip into the frozen tundra. And I'll talk to you again Monday. Bye-bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.